What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we have got our must-know Week 5 waiver wire pickups, so make sure to tune in. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. Also, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. Join our free newsletter for exclusive content, and give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin to continue interacting with us as the week progresses. Send us questions, and we will do our best to answer them. But for now, let's get right into it. Before getting into our breakdown, we want to give you guys a quick word from our sponsors at Overlay Fantasy Sports, who are taking DFS to a whole nother level. And we specifically want to highlight their all-new matchup shop, which is absolutely electric. And trust us, folks, we've been using Overlay Fantasy since the start of the NFL season, and it has been an absolute blast because let's face it, betting on the same old Team A versus Team B, spread picks can get a little bit boring. So why not spice things up a little bit? The matchup shop function at Overlay Fantasy Sports does exactly that, as it allows you to pick between individual player matchups and who you think at the end of the day will have better fantasy production. So take advantage of that. You guys are doing all this homework to begin with for your fantasy squad, so why not have it benefit your wallet as well? You can pretty much bet on any single matchup that you want. Leading up to Thursday Night Football, you can go running back versus running back in the Denver Broncos versus the New York Jets. And as long as you think that a certain player will have, let's say here, Melvin Gordon and Frank Gore within 11 points of fantasy production, then smash that buy button. But maybe you don't want to focus in on that matchup. No problem. Overlay Fantasy has other options as well. From quarterback matchups to wide receiver matchups, it is all there. The spread picks works exactly like you are used to when betting other sports, so no worries there. And if you guys want to add a couple picks to a single betting slip, then that works as well. Get that parlay going to win big. And right now, take advantage of some other sport options as well. Not only the NFL, you've got golf, MLB, and NBA. There are plenty of opportunities here to make some money. So take advantage of this incredible situation and the awesome matchup shop function within Overlay Fantasy. Starting off at the quarterback position, we begin for the second week in a row with Teddy Bridgewater of the Carolina Panthers. We highlighted Bridgewater this last week because he had a very positive matchup versus this Arizona Cardinals defense that's been struggling for a little bit, and wouldn't you know it, Bridgewater came out of that matchup with 276 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Pretty decent numbers, and now guess what? In week 5, he has a matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Bridgewater isn't a long-term solution, but if you need a spot start here in the short term, a matchup versus the Falcons is pretty ideal, and we expect Bridgewater to have another similar type of performance in week 5. Next up, we've got Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers, who, yes, he has missed these last 2 weeks with an injury, but he is expected to tentatively return for week 5. And if that is the case, well, that means a matchup versus the Miami Dolphins. And again, another great streamable quarterback option when looking at the opposing defense. We love streaming guys against teams like this, and Garoppolo definitely fits the bill. And all of a sudden now, this 49ers offense is getting some of its offensive pieces back healthy. Assuming Garoppolo is under center, he'll have guys like Debo, Ayuk, and George Kittle at his disposal. So for that reason, we would take a chance on him in week 5. Our third and final quarterback is Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. And yes, we get it. His last 2 starts have been extremely forgettable. First versus the 49ers, then this last week versus the Rams. Didn't really do all that much, maybe improved a little bit, but here's the big but. In week 5, the Giants have a matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys. And we're not saying the Giants will win this game, but it sure seems like a bounce back game for Daniel Jones and this Giants offense. When you consider that this Dallas Cowboys defense just let up over 40 points to the Cleveland Browns. Now, we're not saying the Giants have as much offensive talent as the Browns, but Daniel Jones should be in line for a big-time rebound, and we don't mind streaming him here. Probably won't cost you all that much either to pick him up. Moving on, we get to our running backs after a big week in terms of big name running back injuries. So this is the area to know in this breakdown. And we begin with the LA Chargers. Obviously, the big news, Eckler, hamstring, out for an extended period of time. Will be on IR, but tentatively expected to return later in the season. Thing is, no one really knows when that will be. So in the meantime, Josh Kelley, Justin Jackson. These are the two names you need to know. And we realize that Josh Kelley is probably already owned in the majority of your leagues, but still do yourself a favor. This is more so us just mentioning his name, getting it out there, and he has been the preferred option in terms of backups to Austin Eckler. Granted, Justin Jackson has been nicked up, but we would anticipate somewhere between a 60-40 split between these two guys, maybe 55-45, a little bit closer. Either way, though, Kelley has shown us more. He probably will get more of the opportunities. But then the name that we should probably more so be focusing on here is Justin Jackson, because finally kind of returning back from injury and didn't really get out-touched by Kelley all that much. And he's definitely going to be the better value pick and much higher chance that he is available off of waivers. That's probably why you should focus in on him. And a date in week 5 versus the New Orleans Saints probably means that there will be a lot of scoring opportunities for the Chargers and a lot of volume for one of these guys. So do yourself a favor and check out the status for both of these Charger running backs. Next up, we've got D'Ernest Johnson of the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns had their own big name running back go down this last week, Nick Chubb. Tentatively expected to miss around 6 weeks, but we'll see how accurate that timeline is. What we do know is, in the meantime, Kareem Hunt is a top 10 running back. But since he was the top handcuff to own and a solid flex play every single week, he's not really an option in terms of a waiver wire pickup. However, the third string running back, D'Ernest Johnson, is. And this last week versus the Cowboys, 13 rush attempts, 95 yards. Now, do keep in mind that was versus Dallas, so I wouldn't necessarily expect that every single week. But week 5 is a matchup versus the Colts. The Browns still want to be a run-first team. And right now, if you guys are desperate at the running back position, Johnson might not be a bad play simply because he might take on that Kareem Hunt type of role as a change of pace back. Now, again, obviously, we would say that it's not as high of an upside as Kareem Hunt, but a low-end flex play, especially if you need help at the running back position, you could do worse than D'Ernest Johnson. Our third and final running back is Damien Harris of the New England Patriots, who these last few weeks has been on the IR, but is now expected to return. And actually, prior to being placed on IR, it looked like Harris would be the running back to own for the Patriots. Now, pair this with the fact that Sony Michel is a little banged up, and then Cam Newton tested positive for COVID, it sure seems like there will be some opportunities for Harris early on top of that. And when you consider that the Patriots will probably focus more so now on the run in order to help out whoever the new quarterback to replace Cam Newton might be, well, again, that translates to upside for Damien Harris. If he's available because he was injured, we would take a flyer on him as well. Looking at our wide receivers next, we begin with Scotty Miller of the Tampa Bay Bucks, who this last week had a pretty decent outing. 5 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown. And yes, a lot of that came on one drive, but still the fact remains is that during a short week where the Patriots will have to play again on Thursday night, Godwin might be out yet again. And on top of this, we know that O.J. Howard is out for the season with an Achilles, which means even more opportunities. Yes, the matchup is not ideal versus the Chicago Bears, but if you guys are desperate at the wide receiver position, Scotty Miller might have some short-term appeal. Next, we've got Tim Patrick of the Denver Broncos, who had a huge week 4, 6 receptions, 113 yards, and 1 touchdown. Now, yes, that's tied to the fact that the Broncos continue to lose offensive weapons. Unfortunately, Noah Fant, KJ Hamler got nicked up, and it looks like in week 5, Patrick might have, some of those opportunities because of those injuries offensively yet again. Now, obviously, the Broncos won't be playing the Jets every single week, so I would temper my expectations. But after Jerry Jeudy, it sure seems like Tim Patrick might be the next guy up, and he's taken advantage of that. So for that reason, we would definitely take a flyer on Tim Patrick in week 5. Our third and final wide receiver is Hunter Renfrow of the Las Vegas Raiders, who didn't have a huge week 4, only 5 receptions for 57 yards. But the fact remains is that the Raiders are very banged up at the wide receiver position. We know the situation with Ruggs and Edwards, both injured and still both rookies, so they do make some mistakes. But Hunter Renfrow, a little bit more experience, some more chemistry with Derek Carr, and should continue to be the top option offensively at the wide receiver position. Now, a matchup versus the Chiefs in week 5, even though probably won't translate to a win for the Raiders, does mean that there should be some opportunities for the Raiders to throw it, as they will need to keep up. So for that reason, Renfrow might be a nice spot start in week 5. Getting to our tight ends, honestly, not that many options this week. We start with Cameron Brate, who is obviously here because of the O.J. Howard Achilles injury, out for the year. So that means some increased opportunities for Brate. Yes, we could mention Rob Gronkowski, but since he is such a big name, he's probably already owned in your leagues. That's why Brate might be the better option here. And it's possible that maybe even Brate has a bigger role offensively than Rob Gronkowski, who's being more so used as a blocker. That remains to be seen. It'll take some time in order for that to become clear. But short term here, with, again, highlighting that Chris Godwin probably won't play in week 5, Brate should see some opportunities as a red zone target as well. Mike Evans still not 100% after he got a little bit nicked up in week 4. So Brate might be a decent week 5 play. The next tight end to know is Dalton Schultz of the Dallas Cowboys, and this is a long shot because we've mentioned Dalton Schultz before. It's been a while since he became the main tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, but if he's still somehow available, he did have 4 receptions for 72 yards and a touchdown this last week, and the way that the Dallas Cowboys defense has been playing as of late, we know Dak Prescott will have to throw it a bunch, so if Dalton is still somehow available, he would probably be the top waiver wire priority at the tight end position. And finally, we get to our defenses, where we begin with the Arizona Cardinals. And yes, the Cardinals have been absolutely tragic these last 2 weeks. But we've said it before, we'll say it again. Anytime you are playing the New York Jets, that means your defense has a decent shot in terms of fantasy production, and that is exactly the case here in week 5 for the Cardinals. I expect the Cardinals, I've been saying this since last week, to bounce back. I definitely think that this will happen in week 5 versus the lonely Jets, and I do think the defense will play a role in it. Our second and final defense is the LA Rams, who had a nice outing versus the New York Giants, keeping that game relatively low scoring, and they should have a good chance to do so again versus Washington in week 5. We've said it before, Dwayne Haskins is a friendly matchup, and it seems like he will still be the starter for Washington. In case that somehow changes midweek, then we would alter this decision, but as things stand right now, we would take a chance on playing the Rams defensively versus Haskins, who is still making a good amount of mistakes on a week-to-week basis. So with that, we wrap up this week 5 waiver wire breakdown, and as always, let us hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you might have? And as always, if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. Also check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. Join our free newsletter to get some exclusive content. Become a VIP also to get personalized fantasy help from yours truly for the remainder of the season. And finally, give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin to continue interacting with us on there as well. We will answer all your fantasy questions, all the details in the description. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.